Hello there. It's after midnight on November 1st, 2020, and that means that NaNoWriMo has officially begun. I admit that it really snuck up on me this year. A lot of things have been sneaking up on me this year. Coronavirus has messed with all of us, I'm sure, and for several months it just feels like I'm in a state of malaise, and just normal events aren't happening, or if they do happen, they don't feel the same at all. I didn't have nearly as much build-up or preptobering or anything like that for this NaNoWriMo, but I've been doing this project well, this will be my 17th year, and it's one of the only things that'll remain the same if I do it in 2020, and I didn't want to let that chance go, especially since, as always, I have a lot of writing that I could be doing, fiction and otherwise. So anyway, I am here at my parents' house. My niece turned 7 on Halloween, actually, so I came in to celebrate her birthday, and there was Halloween of sorts this year, I guess. People mostly left, I think, candy by the driveways of their homes rather than have people knock on the doors. And I'm committed to doing nano vlogs as usual as well, but I think my style is going to be very different this year as well. A lot less pre-planned. Usually I do a lot of pre-planning for my vlogs. I love going out to places, to write-ins and what have you, which aren't happening in person this year, which also feels like a blow in a way. But I figure for these vlogs this year, I'll just make it a lot more personal and just have little snippets of whatever's randomly happening during the day that feels important to share. Hopefully not as rambly as this intro is, but we'll see how it goes. But in the meantime, keeping with tradition, we got 1667 words to write per day, and the month has officially begun. We're in very early moments of it. Maybe it's not even official yet because of daylight savings, but I don't think that actually takes effect for a few hours anyway. But anyway, I'm going to start my tradition and do my first bit of writing. The 2020 official design NaNoWriMo calendar up on my corkboard, just to have visual representation of the word count goal per day. Dun dun dun!
You know the game Never Have I Ever?
Yeah.
And you can play in the chat as well. So Never Have I Ever works, like I'll say, never have I ever owned a dog. And if you have owned a dog, then you would give a thumbs up because you have done that. If you've never owned a dog, then you would do a thumbs down. You've never owned a dog. So we're going to do some with our novel. Are you ready? Never have I ever started writing The Stroke of Midnight on October 31st.
I'm too much of a sleepy boy for that.
I'm a total night owl, and it's also Halloween and my birthday, so usually at midnight I'm just like, woo,
In the chat, feel free to. You can drop it if you have started or if you haven't started. Okay, next. Never have I ever finished writing a full draft of a novel. Woohoo!
nice.
That's great. It doesn't mean anyone has ever read it or that I'm ever going to show that draft to anyone, but it's finished. Good job.
Yeah, it took me like 10 years. I did it.
Good work. Never have I ever written a novel and then never looked at it again. I kind of did do it, actually.
I don't think I've read the whole thing back like in one go.
Okay.
My dad.
That's like, what is it? Classic stories, like put it in your drawer and just never look at it again. Okay, never have I ever deleted a draft and started from scratch.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm not actually. Have you had?
Like multiple times.
Oh my god.
It's that little editor of yours.
I know. I've got a strong-willed one.
Okay, never have I ever forgotten about a character in my own novel. Like when you're like, oh, whatever happened to that guy?
Actually.
Oh yeah, good word.
I think usually I know where the characters are going. Maybe like a very minor character.
Sometimes, like during NaNoWriMo especially, you go on a weird detour and then you never go back. And then when you look at it later, you're like, who is this? Who wrote this for? I don't know this guy.
I think I did change a character's name in the middle once, but then I went back to the beginning and I was like, who is this?
Okay, never have I ever won NaNoWriMo. Yay!
One time.
Can't be done. But only one, huh? Have I ever won NaNoWriMo more than once? Oh!
This is the year. Now that we've started our novels together.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for playing. Thanks for playing in the chat as well.
Definitely keeping up with the casual vibe here. I'm in my PJs on my couch, snuggled with a blanket. It is election night, and I am doing all I can to not pay any attention to the news. Some is sneaking through, but for the most part, I think I'm doing okay, and Nano certainly can help in that regard, and should, because I seem to already be running behind. Eesh. I am working on my literary newsletter for October. It's a monthly thing I put on my blog where I include news of the month that was of interest to me, a book pick, a book meme, and also snippets of the book reviews that I posted to Goodreads of the books I read that month. That being said, one of the reasons I'm not quite ready to post my literary newsletter for October yet is that I want to finish and add this book to the list. This is The Un-Americans by Leila Lalami, which I started right at the end of October, and I wanted to include, for that reason, in the newsletter, but I need to finish it first, so I'm also trying to get some reading in as well. Another thing that I actually have already written and am ready to post is my first NaNoWriMo post, which is all about the Goodreads Choice Awards, which I'm so excited about. I get so excited every year. I'm excited to be excited even, because I think my enthusiasm for normal life things has waned a little in the end of coronavirus here, or this part of coronavirus here. But it's nice to get a little bit of that great feeling back, that geeky, involved feeling back when I started reading the opening rounds of the Goodreads Choice Awards and thinking about what interested me in each of them and what I thought might win. There was an election that I definitely would have no trouble following. Okay, woo! I finished this book, finally, and I don't know what I really think of this filming style, but here we go anyway. This was a good one, this type of stuff I really like. The plot deals primarily with a man who was killed in an act of vehicular manslaughter, and trying to find his killer and see what was going on there, if it was motivated perhaps by race or ethnicity, because the man was a Moroccan immigrant living in the Mojave Desert with, it seems like, a relatively conservative community. We're told the story from a variety of perspectives, perhaps too many in some cases, like, I don't know, with his one daughter and her one chapter. I guess that was meant to flesh her out a little bit. But his second daughter, Nora, was really the main protagonist, the one with the most chapters, who had a really fleshed out life as a musician who was sort of trying to struggle and find herself, and her family was a little bit bemused by it, or at least her mother and her sister were, but her father supported her, but then she had a more complicated relationship with her father, she found out after his death, and she comes back to town where, because she had been living in Oakland, California, and gets really involved in the case and in her father's restaurant and whether or not it'll be sold and yada yada, and gets involved with an old classmate who actually used to be, well, was a veteran and then also works for the police force. But I think Lalami handled the police part pretty well, like it wasn't too convenient and he wasn't that involved in her case. I liked the POV of the detective who was involved in the case, except she was from DC, and Layla, we don't call it the train in DC, we call it the metro. And I also don't know, like, if the Detective Coleman's race should have been more prevalent in how she thought of herself. It kind of stuck out to me, especially because, you know, Lalami's Moroccan characters, you know, they felt very Moroccan, like, you know, their identity was sort of always there. But she had really interesting stuff in her personal life, too. I really liked that as well. Like, you know, most of these characters felt incredibly well fleshed out, like real people, or even the illegal immigrant who saw the accident or part of the accident, well, accident or what happened. He was probably the least well fleshed out, but he still kind of felt fleshed out. I don't know. And the writing was a little narrative heavy, like, you know, kind of felt a little telly, not showy sort of sometimes, but it was still really engaging and propulsive, and I really enjoyed the read and the characters. So, huzzah! So, I was supposed to meet online with someone tonight to do Havruta study, but she ended up having to cancel, so now my plans are only Nano, I guess. Havruta study is something in Judaism where two partners get together to study the religious texts together. It's part of the religious school tradition for, you know, advanced students, and it's something that I've been wanting to try for a while, well, you know, in an unofficial way, because, you know, I don't have some of the skills to do it officially, traditionally, like namely Hebrew aptitude. But the local JCC just offered an opportunity for matching us up with a Havruta partner to study specific texts in English together for people who didn't have a lot of traditional experience with this, but were curious to give it a sort of go. So I decided to take the bull by the horns, and I joined up, even though, of course, this is the worst time to, you know, do something like this when I'm also trying to write 50K and go back to work and whatever, but it's just that this is the first time this has happened, and it's something I'd kind of been wanting to do for a while, so I just figured, well, why not just dive in? You know, the funny thing is, I randomly stumbled upon this email in my inbox, because I get so many emails from so many different organizations, so most of them fall through the cracks. But another thing I've done recently is I joined a couple of dating sites, including Match. And so I was just searching for the word match to see if, hey, maybe I got a new email from them recently, and that's how I found this Find Your Havruta Match thing. And it's like the neurons clicked for me, I guess, because something I would hope for maybe in some sort of partner, if not romantic then platonic, is the chance, you know, to do this religious study with someone else as interested in this part of Judaism as I am. So there's that. Online dating, I find, can also be draining in the form of rejections, or, you know, trying to get things going with people who aren't interested in reciprocating. And meanwhile, out there in the world, I'm just inundated with rejections, like for my works on submission, like most writers, I think. I mostly get rejections for them. But I guess it's not amping me up to go back to the drafting process where I'll be writing a crappy first draft of something like my fantasy project. I just feel so inundated with rejection lately, I don't know. Although on the opposite end of the coin, that's why Nano could be a good thing to refocus my attention from just waiting for the next rejection to starting something new. Another funny thing about this Havruta program is that I am writing a fantasy project, and Judaism is sort of a backbone of some of my world building in a way, so I'm kind of wondering if it'll bleed in a little bit, but I guess we'll see when I finally meet my partner on Monday. We'll see. But in the meantime, NaNoWriMo is not the time to indulge in being afraid to go head first into a rough draft of something, no matter how rough and crappy it might be. It's just a time to go for it and to see if you can make some sort of sense out of the madness in your heads. And the best way perhaps to get over the fear and all the other BS emotions that I might be like building up as a wall for myself is to just go and do it. And just plow through and not give it a lot of thought and just get the words out. So here we go.